Good evening and welcome to Reverend Sherri's Metaphysical Bible Hangout. I'm Reverend Sherri James, Senior Minister of Understanding Principles for Better Living Church in Inglewood, California. If you are ever in the Los Angeles area, we would love for you to join us. Our Sunday services are every Sunday at 600 West Queen Street in Inglewood, California. And this is actually a rebroadcast. That's why you don't see anybody down in the film strip. We had a problem with Google before, and I don't know if it was Google, if it was me, but essentially it didn't load. And so this is a rebroadcast so that it is actually recorded. So we are in a new series that started tonight called Working the Law to Grow Your Business, Working the Law to Grow Your Business. And we're working with a book by Raymond Holliwell called Working with the Law, 11 Truth Principles for Successful Living. And in this series, what you're going to learn how to do is to learn to work spiritual principle for your business. And what I'm working with you to do is to help you stand out from the competition, eliminate the mental blocks that hold your business back, attract and retain the right clients, and turn your part-time business income into full-time income. So we'll meet here every Thursday, 8 o'clock from tonight until September 10th, every Thursday. So this is our outline for this evening. We'll start with announcements and then opening prayer. And then we'll look at what is the law. And then we'll look at real world examples of applying the law. And then we'll look at what is the law of thinking, your ruling mental state and how your thinking impacts your business. And then finally, we'll end with a section that I call Stinking Thinking Repels Customers. 5 ways that your thinking repels your customers and how you can fix it. And then if we have time, we'll have some Q&A. You can follow along on the blog. I have been marrying the blog piece to what we study in the Bible Hangout. And so it's an opportunity if you want to, some people like to study the written word. And so I do a kind of a condensed version of what we do in the Bible Hangout on the blog. And you can go right over to revsherri.com and read along. My new teleseminar, so Prosper, is coming. And it is, I'm very, very excited about it. It's going to be probably my best class, not probably, it is going to be my best class yet. I have put the kitchen sink in here. And I had a couple of delays, some of them personal, where I had to kind of put the class aside because I had to handle some things in my personal life. And so now I am ready to launch that class. If you want to be in the loop on this class, and if it's something that you think that might be right for you, you can join my newsletter at revsherri.com, and you will be one of the first to know when this class comes available. I'm in the news again. Yay! The Network Journal. I was included in an article called Embrace Your Weakness and Further Your Career. Embrace your weakness and further your career. And you can see that article at TNJ, that's for the Network Journal, tnj.com/career-advice. And so I encourage you to head on over there, take a look, and leave a comment under the article. That'd be great. The scripture for this 4-part series is Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so right where you are, if you would simply relax and just give your attention over to the one power and the one presence in all the universe, God, the good, omnipotent, the everywhere, evenly present spirit of absolute good. That presence and that power resides within us at the very center of our being. More than anything else, we are spirit. We are perfect. We are whole. We are complete. And that power and that presence is our reality. And that reality is beautiful. Thank you, God, for this class. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for this opportunity to share your word. Thank you, God. And so it is. So what is the law, and specifically God as law? One of the things that Raymond says in the text, right on the first page of in the preface, is that I shall call God working in our lives law. That is what law is. Law is a word to describe how the presence and the power of God works in our experience. So it like how God shows up for you and for me is as law. So when you think of the law of gravity, that law is true whether you are in Texas, whether you are in California, whether you're in Pennsylvania, wherever you are. The law of gravity expresses, it shows up the same. And so, and it's one of the ways that we experience God as the empowering force that adheres us to the very planet that we inhabit. But that law also shows up in the form of giving and receiving, that when we give, however we give, then it is given back to us. We receive based on the quality of that giving and based on the quantity of that giving. And so the way that we experience God in our personal lives is as law. And so this is the term. Now, we have many different terms that we use for the name God. We use terms like principle, which means fundamental truth, father, mother, which seeks to acknowledge that God is not just father, but God is also mother, that God is our only true parent. Jehovah, which is another word for saying the Christ, which is in the Hebrew scriptures, Jehovah represents the Christ. Lord, God. We have a lot of different ways that we express the word, the way that we talk about God, and each one represents, it's all the same. So the terms are synonymous, but they speak to an aspect of God. Another word that we use for God is substance. It's a way, God is spirit, so God does not have a body in the way that we think of a body, but everything that exists is pressed out of God. Well, what does it come out of? Well, it comes out of substance. It's a way to talk about the body of God, even though there is no literal body. As we strive to work with the law, we are living closer to God, and such living brings a better understanding. As we strive to work with the law, we are living closer to God, and such living brings a better understanding. When we say, "Thy will be done," what we are really asking is, help me to live in accordance with the law. I know that if I go and step off of a 10-story building, gravity is going to have a result. Does that mean that God doesn't like me? No. Gravity works the way that gravity works. So if I step off that building, then there's an agreement that I'm making to live up to whatever the consequences are stepping off of that 10-story building is. So I cooperate with gravity. I don't put myself in a position where I would step off of a 10-story building. And it's the same thing with every other universal law, that what I'm striving to do is to live in cooperation with that law. So when we talk about giving and receiving, which is one of the spiritual laws of the universe, that giving and receiving, when I give, I am participating in the law. Incidentally, when you give to a church, that's what you're doing. You're participating in the law. one of the things that burns me to no end is when people teach tithing as some kind of magic. And it's like, it's not magic. You're participating with how the universe already behaves or handles or responds to you. And that when you give, that you cannot outgive the universe, because the moment that you give it, the universe presses it back right into your hand in different forms. It may not come back exactly as money, but it comes back as exactly what you need. So the giving or any action that you take, what you're working to do as a spiritual being is to get into cooperation with divine law. Always let thy will be done is let me cooperate with divine law. Let me cooperate with the Spirit of God. Let me work in alignment with the way that God works. And so when I try to reap where I haven't sown, well, that's not thy will be done. If I have not done the work, then there is no fruit or no harvest to bring in. So always let thy will be done is to let me cooperate with the divine will of God. So a couple of real world examples. It occurred to me when I was, kind of thinking through, okay, well, explaining, why would a minister be talking about business development and things like that? Because that's something that I have a heart for. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 15, and I have a heart for business. I absolutely love it. I'm fascinated by it, and when I pick things to read, is usually something that's business related. And I equally love the arts. So, go figure. But this idea of applying spiritual law to business is not new. And one of the first people that I learned about who did it was a man named Robert Collier. Now, Robert has made his transition, but he's the author of an incredible book that I highly recommend you put in your library, The Secret of the Ages. And he's an American author of self-help and New Thought metaphysical books in the 20th century. He founded Robert Collier Publications, which still exists today. The way that I ran across him, I started blogging in 2009. I had written an ebook that's no longer available. And I'd written this ebook it's called The Money Poems. And I was looking at ways to, share the book, get it out there. And I ran across the Robert Collier letters. And Robert Collier was famous for writing these incredible sales letters that essentially converted people to customers. And you've probably seen some of these things like back in the day where someone would send you, it would almost be on like a legal size sheet of paper. And it would be all of this like print, all of it leading up to some type of offer. Well, that was something that Robert Collier pioneered, and he really understood copywriting. And he ended up publishing a lot of books, and it's actually how he first published The Secret of the Ages. It was a series of essays that were published and then sold through direct mail. And so he would send the letter of appeal, and the person would send back the money saying, okay, yeah, send me this book, essay that you're promising, booklet that you're promising. It was only later that those essays were compiled into the volume today that we know as The Secret of the Ages. He is very, in The Secret of the Ages, he talks about how he applied spiritual law to his business and how other people also have applied spiritual law to their business. Another name that I know that you will know, and everybody knows this name, is Napoleon Hill. And he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield and the number of people often cite him. He is kind of almost like the granddaddy of the New Thought authors who were applying spiritual principle in the area of business success. Other names that you may not know belong to the New Thought movement are men like Norman Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. And not so much that they were adherents, but they studied the principles and applied them to their business. One of the things that's unique about New Thought is that it was a spiritual movement that grew out of spiritual healing. And so many of the New Thought pioneers, Mary Baker Eddy, Charles Fillmore, Myrtle Fillmore, Johnny Coleman, they came to this teaching on the heels of a physical healing. They each had some kind of sickness or illness in some way and came to this teaching based on receiving a physical healing. My immediate teacher, Reverend Della Reese, had an aneurysm in 1978, and using the principles that she learned from Johnny Coleman, she's still alive today. And at that point in history, an aneurysm took you out. So that, using the spiritual principles that Johnny taught her, that Johnny learned from Unity School of Christianity, that she was able to heal herself, and then ultimately founded a church that teaches that, and then passed the baton to me this past March as the new senior minister for that church. So this tradition is a long tradition of spiritual healing. Well, in the 1910s and 1920s, there were a group of primarily men that were looking at these principles and saying, wait a minute, the same spirit that heals my body heals my money. And so you get men like Charles Hannell, who wrote The Master Key, Charles Fillmore, who wrote Prosperity, Florence Scovel Shinn, who wrote The Game of Life and How to Play It, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Russell Conwell wrote Acres of Diamonds, Emmett Fox, he wrote a ton of stuff, The Mental Equivalent. But essentially what you get is in the like 1910s and 1920s, you get this group of primarily men who start taking these spiritual principles and applying them to business and to industry. And the results are extraordinary. And they're names that we know even today, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Mellon, people like that. So what I'm sharing with you is not new. It's not new at all. It just hasn't been talked about in this way, and certainly not linked back to spirituality. What largely happened is it moved into the kind of the common sense spectrum of how you do business, but its root is spiritual. Also, Johnny Coleman, my teacher's teacher. I only got a very brief interaction with Johnny when I was in the teacher training program in Chicago. She wrote the book, Open Your Mind and Be Healed. She's an American minister in the New Thought movement. She founded Christ Universal Temple and the Universal Foundation for Better Living. And I was a part of a team that established a seminary in Miami, Florida, named in honor of her, called the Johnny Coleman Theological Seminary. And the thing that everybody knows, everybody has a pin, everybody in the UFBL has a pin that says it works if you work it. And if you don't work it, it won't work, but it works if you work it. And so it was her way of saying, just try it. You may be skeptical about spiritual law and its ability to improve your life, and all the things that are being promised in this, spiritual movement, but just try it. It works if you work it. It works if you work it. So what is the law of thinking? Well, the first thing is, what does the law of thinking turn on? And it turns on your ruling mental state. Your thoughts make you. Your ideals, your principles, your ruling desires, they determine your destiny. Your thoughts make you. How so? Well, here's the thing, because a lot of people like to pay attention to action, but action is always secondary. In fact, action is an effect of your thinking. Now, you may act in such a way where you don't know the thought that you thought before you did what you did, but always act. The thought precedes the act and determines the act. So there is no such thing as acting without thinking. Now, you can be unaware of what you thought, but there is not a such thing as acting without some kind of thought that precedes it. So the thought informs what it is that you actually do. Well, the act has a result. There is no force in the universe, in our three-dimensional world, that does not get some kind of reaction. Even the lightest leaf that falls from a tree, that when it lands on the ground, the ground presses back up. It gets an equal but opposite reaction, right? So what ends up happening is that the way that your thoughts produce your experience is that you think it, and whatever your ruling state of thought is, your actions follow, and your actions produce a result, which essentially gives you your experience. And so if you want to change the outcome, you don't concentrate on the action, because that's not where real change happens. Real change happens back where the thinking was that produced the action in the first place. What examples have we seen where someone tried to police actions and it backfired on them? Well, weight loss. You see someone trying to lose weight, and instead of dealing with the thinking that's underneath it, they start manipulating actions. Well, you can police for a while, but then after a time, it's going to revert back because you haven't dealt with what produced the actions in the first place. So you always have to deal with the thinking. Thinking makes it so. My thinking sets the whole thing in motion. Johnny would say, I am the thinker that thinks the thought that creates the thing. Here's one of the challenges with a fatalistic belief. So a belief is just a collection of thoughts, right? The problem is that it's contagious. Your thoughts are magnetic, right? They cluster together. So the problem with keeping a fatalistic thought, believing that all is lost, things are just crazy, the world is upside down, Charleston happened and it's over. The problem with a fatalistic belief is that our beliefs, those thoughts, they're magnetic. And so other thoughts cluster around them. And so what starts out as, not feeling so hot or not feeling so good, meaning emotionally, and then to a full-blown depression if you let it go that far. A fatalistic belief is contagious. It attracts other thoughts just like it to itself. And the danger is that it can become your ruling state of mind. Because once it is your ruling state of mind, then it becomes your experience. Because all of your actions key off of that ruling state of mind. And whatever actions you give are going to produce a outcome in kind. It cannot be otherwise. Every idea and mental picture must produce after its own kind, whether the picture is good or bad. I will say that again. Every idea and mental picture must produce after its own kind, whether the picture is good or bad. The law doesn't question or challenge the kind of picture we give it. The law does not look and say, oh, gosh, her ruling state of mind is broke, but she's created in the image likeness of God. It doesn't do that. It says, broke. Your wish is my command. Here you go. It is always keying off of your ruling state of mind. So when you spend your time ruminating about not having the customers that you want, about not having the kind of impact that you want with your business, when you spend your time going over that thinking in your mind, that ruling state of thought gives the law what you want it to give back to you. It does not take a pause in the creation process to say, I'm going to give her a break. I'm not going to create on that thought. It doesn't work like that. If you offer the thought, you are saying, this is what I want the next scene in my life to be. Now, one of the ways that we talk about the law and the name for the law is I am. I am is God's name as law. I'll say that again. I am is God's name as law. So when you speak the name I am, you are invoking the power and the presence of God as law in your experience. And whatever you attach to it attaches itself to you. So I am wealth sets the law in motion for wealth. I am health sets the law in motion for health. I am sad sets the law in motion for sad. Whatever you attach to it, you set the law in motion for that. So the work is right use of your I am statement. And here's you don't have to say the words I am to be living an I am statement. In fact, many times you do not. It's just underneath the surface. It's just part of the paradigm in terms of how you understand yourself. So you may never speak those words aloud, but it's how you carry yourself. And you carry yourself as someone who believes that I am wealthy, or you carry yourself as someone who believes that I am poor. Even if those words never come out of your mouth, it's just in the way that you handle yourself. So you don't have to just say the words I am to make the law work. You can just carry the attitude of one who is broke and create a broke experience. The progress of the individual is largely determined by his ruling mental state, because the mind is the basic factor and governing power in the entire life of man. Now, I'm going to say that where it applies to your business. The progress of your business is largely determined by your ruling mental state, because your mind is the basic factor and governing power in your business. I'll say that again. The progress of your business is largely determined by your ruling mental state, because your mind is the basic factor and governing power in your business. If you are the leader, Johnny Coleman said it this way: an organization cannot go beyond the consciousness of its leader. If you don't expand, or I'll say it this way, your business expands just to the degree that you have expanded. So if you don't expand, there's no way for your business to expand. So always, when you are growing a business, whether you are a company of one or a company of thousands, the work is on you as the leader to develop yourself and to work on your ruling state of mind. It is your ruling state of mind that turns tragedy into opportunity, that turns failure into success. And it is your ruling state of mind that will snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or defeat from the jaws of victory. Things are not inevitable and they just go happen the way that they happen. It is not luck or happenstance. It is your ruling state of mind that makes it so. Get that right, and everything else falls into alignment. So I want to talk about how your thinking impacts your business. And it is what we believe that determines what we shall see. This is a big one, because people think that what they see is actually what is. There's an author, Anais Nin, French novelist, who said, "We do not see the world as it is, we see it as we are." Two people looking at the same thing see two different things. And what you see is not a function of what is actually presenting. It is a function of what you believe. We do not see with our eyes, we see with our mind. We do not see with our eyes, we see with our mind. And so what happens is that circumstances present themselves. So let's say that you're self-employed or you are an independent contractor. And there are things that you've got to do in order to develop your business. Well, your depending on your response to whatever it is, it determines what the experience it will become for you. So your work is always on being on your belief on what is what you see. You only eyes what you have the eyes to notice. So when you want to make a change, your work is on your belief determines what you notice. Expand your belief, expand what you notice. Expand your belief, expand what you notice. Why do you want to do that? Because when you're sitting there and you don't have enough customers to fund you, or you keep the doors open, you need a belief system that opens you up to see the solution that is already present. And many times businesses fail, and in the founder. Your business cannot grow beyond the level of business. So while you are growing your business, you must also be growing yourself. And if you are not growing yourself and you don't have a self, you really need to grow. As long as we allow things to seem real to us, we are putting our energy into it. A lack of customers is not real. What do I mean by real? Meaning that it has any kind of lasting permanence. It might be a fact, but facts change. And if you don't let it seem real to you and like it's this big thing, if you don't make it more than it is, then it will die off. But things persist because we put our energy to it. We become invested in how things are not working out. And then things don't work out. Thinking impacts your business. We think constantly. Say that any better. We think constantly. The mind is constantly moving and in motion. And so the thing is that we can change our thought, but we can't stop the thinking. And most of us are slaves to our thinking, meaning that we don't know how to change it. And so we're powerless to do anything about it. And so we flit in and out of feeling good and feeling bad. We go in and out of happy and sad. And, we wake up and one day we feel good. And the next day we wake up and we feel bad because we don't know how to stop that inner voice. And the challenge really is not so much to stop it, but to channel it into constructive channels of expression. So we're not trying to stop what's happening. The conversation is happening. You can slow it down with some meditation, but what, you gonna meditate all day? No, you got to get up and do your work. You got to get out there and hustle for your customers. You got to get out there and get the marketing copy written. You got to develop the product. You got to do all these things. So at some point, your guard has got to be down because that's just how life works. And the challenge with your guard being down is that your mind goes to your ruling state of mind. Wherever you normally play in the garden of your mind is where it goes to when you're not on guard. In a setting like this, we're on guard, right? This is a class about, spirituality and how the mind works. And so we're mindfully aware of the type of thinking that's happening. But the issue is when you're in your car and somebody cuts you off and you stop being mindfully aware of what's happening in your mind, and you become mindfully aware of that person that cut you off. And the thing is that, and it's in those moments which happen more often than not so much somebody cutting you off, but when your guard is down, that your mind goes to where it's accustomed to going. And so we recreate our experience because you simply can't police yourself all day. You cannot police yourself all day. So the value and the power of affirmations is that what you're trying to do is move the needle on where your mind goes in those unguarded moments. Everybody has unguarded moments when you forget to be on top of your game as far as how you think and speak and feel and act and react. What you want to do is work with the tools that I give you in the Bible Hangouts and through the blog to move the needle so that in those unguarded moments, you don't fall all the way back into some stinking thinking. So I want to talk about 5 ways that your thinking repels your customers. The first one is believing that your customer is hard to find. Believing that your customer is hard to find. The thing is that you may not know in this moment how to find your customer, right? You may have reached a certain level with your business, with your development, and you don't necessarily know how to expand your base beyond where it is, right? That may be possible. But labeling it hard to find determines what it's going to become for you. Labeling it hard to find. What you call a thing, so it shall become for you. So no, you may not have the information that you need right now, and you may not consciously know how to get there right now. But 2 things. One is that you are ever connected to the infinite wisdom of the universe. So even though you may not be able to consciously call the answer forth, if you will get quiet enough, you can discern the answer. That's 1. And 2, what you call it, if you name it hard, if you name it difficult, then that becomes your experience with it. If you name it impossible, then that becomes your experience with it. Or if you say, I have access to all the wisdom there is. And so though I may not consciously know, I know that I can put a question to the universe and I will be given the answer that I need, because the law is ask and it is given. Seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall open. So I can trust that law. We'll get to that law later in this series, but I can trust that law so I can put a question to the universe, to the infinite wisdom of divine intelligence, and ask for the right solution to the challenge that I'm facing with not having enough customers. And I can trust the information that comes, and it may come back in the form of an impression. It may come back in the form of somebody coming to you and randomly out of the blue. Della always says that it's just another name for God. Out of the blue, sharing with you a tip that's going to change how you do your business. So well, anyway, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. So an affirmation that you can use, because when this belief comes up, which you don't let it sit there, because remember, a fatalistic belief is contagious. So you don't let this contagious belief where you think your customer is hard to find sit there. What you do is you offer another thought, which is, I now know how to attract and retain the right customers for my business. And of course, there's the voice that's going to come up to say, no, you don't. That's why you ain't got no customers. And you affirm, I now know how to attract and retain the right customers for my business. Why do you do that, even though it's not yet physically true? You do that because your, how do I want to say this? Your thinking informs your actions. So when you say to yourself, I now know what to do to attract it, What you are doing is that you are informing the actions that will precede that. Right now, you're already acting on, I don't know how, or my customer is hard to find, right? And so we know what that's getting you. Not enough, right? Well, try this. I now know what to do to attract and retain my customers. And again, when you affirm that, you are changing the basis from which you act. And when you change the basis from which you act, you change how you act. And when you change how you act, you change the results that you get. But it begins with the thinking. I am the thinker that thinks the thought that creates the thing. It starts in my mind and it proceeds from there. Another way that your thinking repels your customers is that you believe your product must be perfect. If you have ever bought a crappy product, you know that perfect is not what sells. You do not cure a lack of customers by making a perfect product. I will say that again. You do not cure a lack of customers by making a perfect product. And you don't cure a lack of customers by thinking about a lack of customers. What you want to do is give your attention wholly and completely to attracting the right customers for the thing that you've already developed. Your product anyway is always going to evolve. It's always going to develop, right? So what you're not looking for the perfect product. You're looking for the customer who's perfect for what you have developed, because there's somebody out there for whom what you have created is the cat's meow. And I'm not telling you not to do your very best, because then that would be a violation of the fourth agreement. And we just did this whole thing with Don Miguel with the 4 agreements. So do your best, but reach for the customer who's right for you right now and make it a priority. And again, you don't cure a lack of customers by thinking about your lack of customers. And you don't cure a lack of customers by turning out a perfect product. First of all, it's impossible to turn out a perfect product. You turn out the best product you can do right now, and you look for the customer who's perfect for what you have right now. Give your attention wholly to what you want and remove it from what you don't want. Another way that your thinking repels your customers is that you fear the lack of customers. Fear is such a powerful drug. And I mean it just like that. It is a powerful drug. It can lull you into paralysis, where you get up, and I know this, I'm speaking from experience. When I first started my production company, this is years ago now, this is like in the late 90s, and I started a production company, and I don't know if I was afraid of success or failure or both or what, but I would literally go into the office, and from like 9 to 3 a.m., 3 p.m., excuse me, I could not figure out what to do. And I can't tell you what that was about. I was so wound up with fear and anxiety that I literally could not take action. And ultimately that business failed. But I could not take action. And it wasn't that I didn't know what to do, but every time I got ready to do it, I second guessed everything that I did. It was, oh God, it was painful. Our fears are so powerful. Our fears can literally shut us down. And it's, I guess I have the fear of failure because I brought the failure on. Our fears because what happens is that it becomes your ruling state of mind. And remember, the law of thinking works according to your ruling state of mind. And if your ruling state of mind is fear, then that's what you bring upon you. So we have to be careful what we fear and worry about. And then, something that I had this conversation last night because I was with a group of people and we were talking about Charleston and just a lot of stuff that's happening in the world. And sometimes some of the reactions that have been in response to the decision by the Supreme Court of the U.S. And, people are fearful about their world changing and fearful about their safety. And so people were talking about getting prepared. And one of the things that was difficult to do was to get people to decouple the idea of preparation and worry, meaning that, let's say that there is a hurricane coming. You can prepare for the hurricane without worrying. But we have so married preparation with worry that it, what I see in my community where we teach people to not give in to the fear is that people don't prepare because somehow they think that preparation means that you're afraid. And it's like, that's not what preparation means, but they're so married together. So we've got to decouple them. And then we've got the other folk that are over here that are so afraid that, and so they're preparing, but they're setting themselves up for a catastrophe because wrapped up in the preparation is the fear of what they don't want, but the fear is so great that it becomes their ruling state of mind. And so we really have got to decouple the idea of preparation with worry. Prepare in a state of peace. We've had enough. I live in California. We've had enough earthquakes in California to know what a devastating one could look like. You can prepare for an earthquake without the fear that the earthquake is coming. They don't go hand in hand. And so it is with your business. You can prepare for lulls in your customer base, right? Because every business goes through the ebb and flow by opening up multiple sales funnels. When one is not producing, another one is producing for you, right? And it's a back and forth, but you open them up, but you don't have to do it worrying about a lack of customers. You got to separate those two ideas. Preparation and worry are not synonymous. And the reason you want to separate it is because your ruling state of mind determines what the law brings to you. And if your ruling state of mind is fear of lack of customers, then you set yourself up to have a repeat of lack of customers. So work on releasing the fear. And there are simple things that you can do to do that. Another way that your thinking repels your customers is that you believe that you're always going to struggle to find customers. And the thing is that you really, again, the belief that the way that it is always how it will be is a recipe for disaster. Slow down and study what is working for you and for others. Just slow down and study it. See what's working. Who in your industry is getting customers? Go talk to them. Find out what system they have in place. And don't worry about competition because you can't offer what they're offering and they can't offer what you're offering. You've got a unique selling proposition that's separate and apart from theirs. So slow down. Look at how nature handles things. When a lion is getting ready to stalk its prey, it stalks its prey. It doesn't go in there, roaring and, trashing the bushes. It would scare everything away. It wouldn't get no food. Nobody would eat that day. But instead, it stalks its prey. And at the right moment, it takes action. It's the same thing with you and your success and figuring out how to attract and retain the right customers. Is that you want to stalk your success, not stalk your customers, but you want to stalk your success. You want to be like the lion, laying in wait for it. And then you want to look for some systems because you don't want everything to be a one-off, where every time something's got to happen, you got to be the one initiating it. You need systems for customer retention. So you want to talk to the people in your industry and find out what systems they're using. And even if you can't get to them, somebody is being interviewed. And so you want to find out from their interview. You can read the interview and re-engineer based on their interview how they have created their customer retention, attraction and retention system. And then you want to pick the parts that work for you. And this is the final thing that repels customers, and it's probably the biggest one, is that you give your attention to the wrong things. You give your attention to the wrong things. You know, we attract only what we think because we do only according to what we think. I'll say that again. We attract only what we think because we do only according to what we think. There's a story that Raymond Holliwell tells in at the end of the chapter on law and thinking, and it's about this woman who said she wanted to sell her house, and so he asked her, what are you doing to cooperate with the law? And she said, well, I make sure I get in my prayer, my meditation. He said she goes through this list of things that she did, saying, well, I got up, I cooked breakfast for my family, I got the children off to school on time, and then I made sure I got my 30 minutes of silence and reading in, and then she goes through her day. And by the time she gets to the end, and he was like, but what did you do to prepare your house to sell? And she was like, well, I was busy from end to end, and but I got my prayer. And he's like, you're not even disciplined in your thoughts. That you've got to do something every day towards what you want. And so what he started having her do is not just respond to things as they come up during the day. So essentially letting whatever shows up plan her day for her, but for her to be intentional about what it is that she wants to do during her day and making sure that there is something in every day that she does for selling her home. And it's the same thing with us. We say we want to attract and retain the right customers, but it is that we are doing something every day, or are we doing something every day to attract and retain our customers? Systems, because put your attention on product development and some other things that customer retention is only one part of getting that business to work, right? So you want systems that are working for you, that are every day putting something out that is part of you attracting and retaining the right customers for your business. And then, there's a book that I'm reading called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And one of the things that he talks about is how we build our to-do list. And our to-do lists are so overextended. We got so many things on there. There's no way that any rational human being would ever be able to complete the things that are on our to-do list. And so what he talks about is that, there are things on your list that probably could be categorized under could do, but then there are things that you probably really should do. But what ends up happening is that because we want to check things off our list, we go for the could do because those don't require the most brain power, right? And we let the should do fall behind. And what he suggests is that as you go through your list, probably maybe 4 or 5 things on your list really are should do things, meaning you really should go ahead and do them. Well, those are the 5 that are like your top priorities. But even within those top priorities, you want to narrow them to one key thing. And that's the one thing that you do that measurably moves your business forward. So you want to narrow your to-do list to one thing and make sure that that one thing is something that is going to move you measurably forward. You got to look at, am I doing what moves the needle, or am I simply doing busy work? And too many days, I can speak from experience, I'm simply doing busy work. I look like I'm getting a lot of stuff done. Things are getting checked off the list, but it's not the thing that moves the needle. And if you want your business to grow, if you want the customers that you want, then you've got to look at your results. And if what you are doing is not bringing you customers, then you've got to be willing to have a come to Jesus meeting with yourself and get some things in order and do the right things at the right time. So just to recap, so 5 ways that your thinking repels your customers and how to fix it. And how to fix it is in red. So the first way that you repel customers is that you believe your customer is hard to find. And the way you fix it is change your belief by changing what you say to yourself on a daily basis. Number two, you believe your product must be perfect. Do your best, but give your full attention to finding the right customer for what you've already developed. You're not looking for the perfect product, you're looking for the perfect customer for what you have developed. You fear the lack of customers. Starve your fears by refusing to give them attention. Just because the fear comes up does not mean that you've got to get involved with it. Instead, give your attention to what you want to do, want to multiply, and because you don't want to multiply the fear, which is your customer base. Give your attention to what you do want to multiply, which is your customer base. Number four, you believe you will always struggle to find customers. You want to study success like an animal studies its prey. Eat it, drink it, sleep it until you master it. Make it submit to you. Stick with it until you figure it out. And finally, you give your attention to the wrong things. You want to reduce your to-do list to one thing. And that one thing should be the main thing that will drive customers to your business to buy from you. Reduce your to-do list to the one thing, and that one thing should be the main thing that will drive customers to your business to buy from you. And so my call to action to you this week is pick one of the 5 ways that resonated the most to you and work on that one. Journal your results, number 2. And number 3, leave me a comment on the YouTube video with your results. Leave me a comment on the YouTube video with your results. I'd love to hear from you. And that is all that I have for you. Thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I bless you and I release you in the love and the light of the Christ. And I affirm that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and so it is. Have an absolutely beautiful day. And I will see you. Take care.